are you most worried about in the markets? Is it liquidity? Is it fragmentation geopolitically that actually filters through, and we could have like a shock or something quite violent on the markets?
Certainly there is a geopolitical depression. There is a hot war in Ukraine. Unfortunately, this brutal Russian invasion of Ukraine is going to get worse this year. That can lead to an escalation. I was just in Israel where they're worried about Iran becoming a threshold nuclear state. They'll have to make a tough decision on whether to accept deterrence or attack Iran. If that were to happen, there'll be a shock to energy prices. And unfortunately, after the G7 Hiroshima summit, I would say there's not going to be any thaw between US and China. The Chinese reaction to this G7 summit is that European, US and Japan and others are ganging up against China. So this Cold War between US and China is going to get colder. And eventually, these geopolitical tensions are going to have some market implications because they're going to slow down economic growth, they're going to lead to rise in commodity prices, and therefore they're going to continue to disturb markets and economies.
But is there a role for Europe actually between the US and China, and can they attract investments from certain parts of Asia because of this new Cold War?
Well, the Europeans would like ideally to do business both with the US and China. The US is telling them, given what's happening in Ukraine, given that China effectively is an ally of Russia, you have to take a stance. And there's been a movement. NATO is now projecting towards Asia. There is a Quad, there is a UQS. There's a whole build-up of a new Asian regional security. This is going to involve also Europe. Europe is also concerned in part about what's happening in China, and the G7 communique has reflected those types of concerns.